IBC family. I hope you're doing well. I know we finally got our winter storm, it seems like, and there's snow yet still to come. And so obviously at first, I just want to say, stay safe out there and please don't drive unless you have to. The roads are very slick. We'll be in touch as far as what services look like this weekend. I mean, so far we're a go, but then we don't know how this all plays out. So we'll let you know in the next day or two when we have a better idea of what the weather's going to do and the conditions of the road and everything that's involved with that. But while you're hunkering down, perhaps maybe with a hot cup of coffee or tea, or maybe you're just kind of sitting kind of like, I'm not going to get out there, which is probably a wise thing to do. I just want to give you just a little encouragement for the week until the weekend comes here. In my reading, my Bible reading this past week in the mornings, it just kind of hit me. I'm going through the Common Prayer like I know a number of you are, and reading through Genesis right now, it just kind of dawned on me just kind of a perspective that really encouraged my heart, and I wanted to share it with you. When we think about how God chose Abraham and says, Abraham, I'm going to do something great through you. In fact, his first promise, his first declaration to Abraham was this in Genesis chapter 12. He says, I will make for you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Now when you kind of take that promise and then you start seeing how this promise unfolds, sometimes you might have questions of doubt, because when you look at Abraham's life, God promises him to make a great nation through him, and guess what? All the circumstances in much of his life seem to kind of be contrary to that promise. Because again, he's around the corner of 100 years old. His wife is 90 years old, Sarah. She's barren, can't have any children. And so we see that we don't know how this promise is going to be fulfilled. Abraham takes matters in his own hands and has Ishmael with his wife's maidservant. That was not according to God's plan or design. But we see that ultimately there are many circumstances that seem to kind of inhibit or be contrary to God's promise. But then, of course, you know the story, right? And God miraculously has Sarah give birth to a child, and his name is Isaac. And then we see a little bit further that God reaffirms his promise to Isaac. It's just the irony is Isaac's wife also is barren until finally God says, you are going to have children. And it's going to be a wonderful thing. And so his wife has two sons, Esau and Jacob. And of course, they're always kind of battling it out from the very beginning of time. And Esau is a man of the wilderness and a hunter and a gatherer. And it seems like kind of Jacob's more of a homebody in a sense. But the fact is, God affirms his promise more over and again to Abraham. He does the same thing to Isaac, even though the circumstances seem to not point that they will actually be fulfilled. And then we see to Jacob, God says it again. As I read yesterday morning, God says, this is what I'm going to do through your family. This is the land that I'm promising you. This is what how I'm going to glorify myself through you as my people. But once again, we see that there's a lot of strife and enmity, and even in the family. And we see that Jacob's on the run, and we see that his wives, I guess I say plural, one is very fruitful and one is not. But the wife that the family lineage kind of continues on, she's also barren. And so once again, I'm like, circumstance after circumstance all seem to point to that there's no way God could fulfill his promises, and yet he does. Scripture says that the promises of God are irrevocable, meaning that when God makes a promise, he cannot backpedal. He cannot undo that promise. And I think the way that it encouraged me the other morning, and I want to just bring an encouragement to you, is this, that I know the question has come up multiple times, at least to me, and I'm sure in your circles as well, is what is God doing in the church? I mean, what's going on at IBC? What's going on at the church at large? I mean, this is, with all the COVID stuff, it has been just a radical sifting and paradigm shift in the Church of Jesus Christ. What is God doing? What's going to happen? How's this all going to look? How's this all going to play out? There's a lot of circumstances that potentially seem to inhibit or stand in the way of God's promise. What was God's promise? That he said he would build his church. God says, I will build my church, and even the gates of hell cannot prevail. God's promises are irrevocable. They cannot be undone. They cannot be removed. And so as I reflect on that in my own life, and as I reflect in our specific context here in Port Angeles, especially at IBC, brothers and sisters, I just want to encourage you with this, that whatever God is doing is going to be good. Whatever God chooses to do, it's going to be for our good and for his glory. Regardless of what the circumstances seem to kind of show us or dictate, nothing will stand in the way of God fulfilling his promises to us, his church, and we as his children. So I just want to encourage you with those words, brothers and sisters. I want to encourage you that, again, as we are enduring faithfully and as we're hoping this season comes to an end sooner than later, I just want to encourage you with this, that however this looks down the road, whatever this looks like for Christ Church, especially for IBC, just know that it is going to be good. God is going to glorify himself in it. So I just pray that you are encouraged and strengthened in the Lord, even this weekend. And as you're kind of settling down and kind of weathering out this snowstorm that we're finally getting, I just want to encourage you that just to rest and to reflect on the goodness of God, to not veer away from his promises. If God says it so, it will happen. We don't always know when. We don't always know the manner in which his promises unfold, but we know that they are irrevocable and he will come through. God bless you, IBC family. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll see you this weekend.